Welcome, everyone. It is time for another Mastery Empowerment course with Jean Eng and the Arcturians. This is the Arcturian broadcast transmissions. Each of these events are very high vibrational as we are held in the energy and the information that the Arcturians transmit to us. So let's learn a little more with this video from Jean Eng.
Hi, everyone. This is Gene Ang, and I'm coming here to join you to describe the upcoming Mastery Empowerment class that we're having on the Arcturian broadcast transmissions. And I believe this is a very important series that we're doing here. I think the background for where this is coming as I try to tune in to what the divine and the higher beings, particularly the Arcturians, can land for us in our kind of rapid evolution, is that I think more and more people are deepening their spiritual path. They're becoming not only intellectually more knowledgeable about deeper spiritual principles, but they're also energetically deepening their system, clearing their system, also expanding their system. I think the analogy is that as we're sort of on the spiritual path, we may first have to overcome this initial thought form that the sort of energy or multidimensional world is not real, even though we may have intuitions or direct experiences, only because that might be a collective thought form that we have currently on the planet, that we're taught that really what's primary is the physical dimension. And it may not even only just be primary, it may be the only real dimension. So even if we had a spiritual leaning or bent or experiences as a child, we were still taught that primarily what was real was the physical world. So we had to overcome that aspect. And you can see that more and more now the energy model is being accepted. Maybe it started first with yoga, which was still kind of very physically based. Now we see many yoga centers, on almost every street corner in some major metropolitan cities. Then we moved to an era where meditation became much more mainstream. And now you see it, mindfulness in business, you see that in the military, you see that at the high corporate level, mindfulness programs. And it's also reflected in the different apps that we can get, like very popular apps now are based on mindfulness meditation. And maybe many people here work in the energy world, but now more we're seeing mainstream media and society accepting sort of energy or chi or prana as being important or relevant. So we're beginning to kind of be more multidimensional as a society. But usually people who are listening, the audience who would be including us, are sort of more at the, you could say, the cutting edge. It's not only that we believe it, but maybe we've been working in that world for many years or decades. And so this audience that I'm speaking to, our knowledge base is both deepening as well as our energy field is deepening. So this requires additional sort of means and also ways to work. And hopefully that's what's being provided by connecting with our higher guides, our spirits, who are helping us, as well as these programs, kind of bringing down energies, transmissions, processes, and practices to accelerate that. And one last analogy is sort of like we could read a lot about, let's say, a sport like volleyball, and we become very knowledgeable about volleyball, almost encyclopedic, for example, in this theoretical example. In the same way, we could become intellectually very knowledgeable about the multidimensional world, the energy world, how to use energy. And that's also very helpful. But you could also see that that has its limitations. A person who's very knowledgeable about volleyball is still not going to win probably a regional or state or national volleyball competition, let alone maybe go to the Olympics. You would need a lot of actual practice with the physical body, and that would include the energy body and maybe even the astral body, although maybe most modern volleyball teams aren't talking about those last two or three bodies I mentioned. But there's a whole other aspect of knowledge which comes with practicing of the different vehicles. And I think that's also the same way with spiritual work. We have the knowledge base, but we also have the capacity to practice our different bodies, including the physical body, the energy body, the astral body, the causal, spiritual, and divine body. So we want to take into account both of these arms or both of these legs of understanding or knowledge as well as practice. So now more specifically to the Arcturian broadcast transmission and where that lands in this more general idea that we're really advancing very deeply, both in our knowledge, but more importantly, I believe, to this program in our practice is the fact that as our energy field gets stronger, as we learn more and other subtle bodies, learn more practices, and not just learn them, which is the intellectual side, but put them into practice for a number of years or decades, purification practices, as well as subtle body building practices that build our channels, our chakras, our energy field, and our pillar. We become stronger in basically our thought power, as well as our receptive power, meaning our clairvoyant power. So what we really are is exactly the term I tried to capture in the title. We're like a broadcast station, as well as maybe a satellite dish would be the most maybe relevant analogy if you had both of those together. So we're both receivers of subtle energies, as well as particularly thought forms or thoughts, as well as we're broadcasters of those thoughts and those energies. And as many people know who've been like really contemplating and working with the ideas of manifestation or materialization, really everything that comes into manifestation starts as a thought form. That's the power of our mind to create, is actually this mind power, which with relevant other interdependent factors gives rise to what we see in the world and what through our will we choose to manifest or materialize in the world. So I'd like to just maybe share two quotes to unpack this idea. One of them I recently was reading in a course that maybe some people here listening have heard from, this book called Lords of Light, The Path of Initiation in Western Mysteries. This was a collection of teachers by a person who had started and had also studied at a number of mystery schools, mostly Western. If people know Dion Fortune, who's not the author here, but a contemporary of the author W.E. Butler, who's the author of this book, Lords of Light. He started his own mystery school, but he was also studying in mystery schools started by Dion Fortune. Anyways, very, I think, important and great book if you wanted to check that out for deeper esoteric knowledge in the mysteries, particularly from the Western esoteric tradition. But he points out this fact that we are really powerful broadcasters and receptors of thought form energies. And I just wanted to capture that in this quote. It's on page 67, and the chapter is called Training the Personality, the Actors in the Lounge. So he says, the fact that it happens below the level of consciousness doesn't mean we are not affected by it. This is telepathy, actually, he's talking about. We are, and very much so. When talking about another person, people sometimes say, I won't say anything about him, but I can think what I like. I've said it myself, but it's wrong. You can't think what you like, or rather, you can, but you take the consequences of what you think, because we are linked together in this peculiar telepathic way. When you think, you send out thought forms. Some people send out lovely ones, and others not so lovely. If you're clairvoyant, you can sometimes see them, nasty little things or beautiful little things, as the case may be. In any case, we are continually sending out this stream of thought. We can't help ourselves. We are man, manas, the thinker. And so we must always be sending out these waves of thought. We're natural radio sets, continually transmitting. So that was what I was saying, that we're this type of broadcaster as well as a satellite dish, to kind of echo his W.E. Butler's analogy of being a radio set. He was writing around the 1930s to 1950s. And it's great to use these, I think, technological examples in spirituality because they really reflect, they're probably reflecting more and more what's happening in our consciousness in the spiritual world, because technology came out of humanity's consciousness and probably was first, a thought form itself, or something that existed in the astral world, much like we're telepathic and broadcasters, and then eventually manifested in the physical world through what we see, such as radios, high power telescopes, high power radio dishes. Now the internet, for example, is probably a reflection of telepathy that occurred before it. So that was just one thing. And one of the things to point out, which with the purpose of the Arcturian broadcast transmissions, is they call it this responsibility comes with knowledge. So he was pointing out there that if you don't understand the multidimensional model, let's say no one taught you distance healing, which means that you can affect people's energy field and therefore also consciousness by a distance. You don't have to physically be present. Then you can somewhat claim ignorance, meaning, in that quote, he says basically, the person says, when talking about another person, people sometimes say, I won't say anything about him, but I can think what I like. So if you really don't understand the multidimensional model yet or experience it, in some ways you can say you're not responsible for what your thoughts do to some extent. It's a bit like when a child doesn't understand completely, let's say, doing something wrong, that might hurt someone, and goes ahead and does it. They can claim somewhat what we call ignorance. They would still be responsible in a sense, but they can claim a little bit of ignorance, and we would understand that. So, people are maybe thinking what they like about other people, and so they may not fully yet understand the multidimensional model, and they may have some claim to ignorance, although they're still responsible for their thoughts, perhaps subconsciously in this case. However, a person like ourselves starts to really understand the multidimensional model, utilize the multidimensional model, meaning maybe we do distance healing, maybe we understand that it really works, maybe we understand how the science of materialization or manifestation works with thought forms. Then when we start thinking about people, even if we don't do anything to them physically, we know it has an effect on them. And therefore, we do become responsible for our thoughts. And this is a kind of a tall order. And when usually people would go through this or achieve this or start to work with this, let's say in a mystery school training or spiritual training, it may be like a while that they go through the phase of what we might call purification, we're calling it rewiring in the transmissions, where one is really deeply looking at first deeply looking, or first actually being mindful of the thoughts they hold to others, because we know and also other beings, whether it be animals or non-physical beings or places on the planet, so locations, because we know those thoughts truly do have an effect, even though we may never see them or experience them with our five senses. Uh, and then there's also a deeper sort of time that one goes through on the path where not only being mindful of our present thoughts that we're having, but what's deep in our subconscious. Because usually, this is also what we find later has even a larger effect. And that's what you might call like kind of really delving deep into what's being held in our chakras or our channels, kind of when I use that phrase in the write-ups or in discussion, kind of in passing, because these deeper thoughts, thought forms, they could be ancient, they could be from many lifetimes, thousands, millions of years in the past that are still held. Like if we were a great warrior in 500 lifetimes, we would never think of hurting someone now, but maybe 500 lifetimes ago, maybe not even in this current existence, or maybe we'll make it more relevant 10 lifetimes ago. Think about how you were maybe 20 years ago. You might have been a much different person. Maybe you're much more kind of refined now, but think of that in terms of 20 years. We may have been rewarded for being a great warrior. So, hurting people might have actually been very similar to like earning $1 million is now in our society, kind of more highly prized externally. So those deep ancient seeds, if we're really mindful, may still be deeply held within our system. And that's really kind of what a lot of this deeper purification, or what we're calling rewiring in the transmissions when we get to it, are doing. So that was one of the quotes, and then I'll just read one more quote from this book, same kind of couple paragraphs down, just because I think it's more relevant, even more relevant. He's addressing kind of maybe where a lot of people here in the audience are in terms of their spiritual path or development. So he says, when you are an occultist and begin to think with the trained mind of an occultist, your thinking can be deadly because you are trained. You can produce thought forms which are so real and so vivid that under certain conditions, they can actually materialize and be seen with the physical eye. I've done it, so I know. We rarely think without infusing our thoughts with emotion. The only time we don't is when we're working at mathematics. And even then, it's possible when your sums won't come right that you get peeved about it. But thinking about ordinary things, thinking about people, you can put a considerable amount of emotion into what you're thinking. So don't forget, as a trained occultist, you are responsible for your thoughts in a way that an untrained person is not, simply because you have the power to make these vivid and strong thought forms. They can even affect places and buildings. I've been to places where an infestation of unpleasant thought forms had been built up by someone with an elementary knowledge of thought power. And that atmosphere was nasty, very nasty indeed. And where it has been accompanied by pain becomes doubly powerful. That is why places which have been subjected to the thoughts of people who have endured great pain and suffering, Buchenwald, for example, or for instance, carry a terrific charge and power of emotional cruelty and feeling. Okay. Well, that was, very similar to what I was saying. In fact, maybe I was paraphrasing that paragraph, coming to that understanding from what W. Butler was saying. And again, the book is called Lords of Light, Path of Initiation in the Western Mysteries. And it's pretty much available now on Amazon, in case you wanted to study that. The other place before we delve maybe into the transmissions that we'll be getting into to get more background, is when I was studying with pranic healing, and their spiritual branch is called Arhatic Yoga. This was the modality created by Master Chokoku Sui. He said the same thing, like there are Arhatic yoga practices. When you do a lot of spiritual practices, there are practices, purify your subtle bodies, they make them stronger. So, whatever system you might have been learning, I've mentioned clairvision here, which is also a deep kind of a mystery school type system. I would say Arhatic yoga and pranic healing is another type of modern day mystery school, and many different modalities, are now are modern versions of, maybe Atlantean or throughout time, different mystery schools that are being presented in a new way that's relevant to our times. He would say that as you do your practices, exactly echoed W. Butler's thoughts on this, that you really have to become, W. Butler was calling it a trained occultist, which is more of a Western term for an initiate or mystery school student or practitioner, is that you really have to watch your thoughts. This is what Master Choa was saying, because you are more pure, you are more powerful energetically. So, if you aren't trained, you can think of your thought, coming back to, if it's a beautiful thought, meaning, let's say, a healing intention, maybe it looks like a beautiful flower to someone clairvoyantly. You place that in a person's energy field, and it's not just one small flower. If you're strong, it would probably show up as maybe a bouquet of roses or a bouquet of carnations, like just to demonstrate its intensity. But also, what Master Cho was saying is, if you have to watch your negative emotions when you have that stronger energy field and more pure energy field, because just the same way W. Butler was saying, these nasties, like in shamanism, when someone's angry at someone else, consciously or unconsciously, it may come out of their field like a dart. They call them actually shamanic darts, because of course most shamans are very clairvoyant and are seeing these thought forms as things in journeys or in kind of their clairvoyant vision, and they would look maybe like a dart or a dagger, and the stronger it is, it could look like a big sword or something. And so to kind of demonstrate its intensity plus its emotional valence, which is kind of more cutting, negative, like an attack. And so, we have more responsibility than when we're stronger to be more mindful, because we can't claim ignorance anymore. So in our consciousness, in the consciousness of the beings who are guiding us, the consciousness of the beings who are observing us in the astral world, as well as the beings who are incarnated, who might be receiving the effect of our thoughts, good, bad, or neutral. They tend to be very strong and manifest faster, which means the karma or the cause and effect comes back with that same intensity, which is very beneficial in a positive cycle. So you think of something, you think of a blessing of someone, and this is maybe what we think of as saints or masters who we may have known ourselves. When we bless a place, bless a person, in healing, or just we know someone's going through a hard time, we think very positively of them. If a lot of energy is pouring down through your pillar is very strong, your chakras are very strong, that has a very positive effect on those people who you think that, and also those places that you're blessing. And then, of course, you understand conversely, it's really going to be when we're caught, because most people would think, well, at this point, I wouldn't, usually think something negative towards someone. But again, now is these deeper subconscious layers. If kind of pushed into the right situation, you might get angry in kind of the right cause and conditions come into place, a more challenging maybe situation. And then, subconsciously you might, hit the anger button. And then now you have a stronger field. And so this is actually the process of initiation, is our higher self and maybe you could say, if you follow this or believe in this, your guides, they're actually trying to put you in those more difficult situations, not as so much as a test to see what you would do, although that might be one interpretation, but it uncovers these subconscious kind of negative thoughts. We kind of cleared out the surface. Things look shiny, and they truly are shiny, on the surface, but there's those layers that we need to get at. So we're given more difficult situations to kind of find where those are. So it's a great mirror. It's a way to kind of you could cognitively reframe difficult situations as a chance to really pull out those harder subconscious negative thoughts. And our subtle bodies get purified to a new level as we integrate that, and also we get stronger. But this is also, I'll talk about it a little bit in our third transmission, what I call the ethical use, as you also improve your subtle body system, and maybe you've learned techniques, or have these transmissions. For example, one would be meditating in the pillar. As you kind of do that consistently, so someone teaches you, like if you're in sports again, not only how to do the sports, but they go take you to a gym which has equipment and says, if you do these 5 sets of 5 reps on this squat machine, not only are you going to, be X level player volleyball in terms of your jump height, but over time, you're going to be able to jump maybe 2 times as high. So that ability for someone to show you, which most of us, this knowledge is readily available. Question is whether we put it into practice. But all kind of weightlifting improves sports. There's many studies that show that, and we almost intuitively know that now. So if someone teaches you, on the spiritual level, how to make your chakras bigger, or how to build your pillar, and then you put in the work, then your system is going to be stronger. And so that conscious effort makes your system stronger, and therefore you kind of have these added abilities, and then also added kind of ethical, maybe standards that will be kind of imposed. We will impose them on ourselves. Is kind of usually the way it happens, but we impose them because we realize that the universe is kind of going to require that of us, as well as those guides who in the inner and outer world who are training us will usually be sort of seeing how we use this sort of new level of power. Okay. So there was one quote. This book is from Choco Koksui. It's called Achieving the Impossible. It's a great book, very succinct book on manifestation. I believe the subtitle is on, let's see, I'll get that for a second. It says, Achieve the Impossible, the Golden Lotus Sutra on the Science of Prosperity, and I believe spiritual business. Yeah, spiritual business management. Okay, so back to this quote. Let's see if I can find it again. So he says, imagine an electrical wire. It has to be of a certain purity for energy to pass through it. If it is not pure, electricity would not be able to reach a light bulb or electrical appliance. Again, kind of these use or analogies of technology, even though that would seem to be a very straightforward technology. The same goes for your soul. Your chakra must be of certain purity so that power can pass through your system. When power passes through your system, you can materialize just by thinking or saying. So that's kind of that CD, they call it spiritual power. Just by thinking or saying something, you could materialize it. And he's sort of giving you the secret, although it seems very straightforward and maybe even common knowledge among maybe an audience like ourselves, that if you purify your subtle anatomy, your subtle dimensions, you purify your chakras, your channels, then one of these capacities that occur, that's how you get to that point where what you say or what you think or what you write comes into manifestation faster. And we know of maybe some people like Babaji or Sai Baba, who is maybe able to manifest, this Vibhuti kind of this spiritual ash, directly from the spiritual world into the material world. So it can kind of even occur instantaneously, like instantaneous healing. They call it an evocative healing, where you may say, may this person be healed of such and such illness, and it may even miraculously happen right on the spot, with some people, because they're just pure channels of the divine energy. Okay, that's some maybe extensive background, or a little bit longer on the background of where these transmissions are being kind of placed. I was just going to find the description so we can talk a little bit about the different transmissions in brief. If you're new to the Mastery Empowerment courses, particularly the ones that Lauren Gailey and I have been kind of co-running or co-hosting, what we usually do is we have a couple, some time to discuss the topic, some of the knowledge base behind it. We go deeper into these concepts that I brought up, particularly on the transmission that we're going to do that day. Then we have about an hour transmission, and that's a bit like an energy healing. What we're doing is we're inviting the divine, our guides and teachers. If you connect with the Arcturians will also be kind of there spiritually too. And the Arcturians, they're sort of divine beings of a kind of cosmic nature. There is a star called Arcturus, and that sort of like is a physical anchor for this astral or subtle dimensional space of these beings. They're very advanced, kind, compassionate, very focused on healing, very straightforward in my perception of the way they work. And so, they will also assist us in these transmissions. And again, this energy and consciousness is sort of like asking maybe an older brother or sister, whether that be an angel or an archangel or our holy guardian angel or the Arcturians, or simply our higher self, to change, using thought again, consciousness and energy, help rebalance, change our own subtle anatomy, according to our intention. Our intention here is to be better broadcasters, meaning more pure, as well as receivers, which we'll talk about as one focus of the transmission. So broadcaster and receiver of thought, energy, and subtle power, usually called prana or chi on the etheric level, so that we could be a greater service. That's the overall intention here. So it's not kind of a self-serving intention, because what we're really, it could be, I'm not saying that you couldn't have that, and if that's a primary motivation, one could. It's just that what we're really focusing here is this other concept of like attracts like. So if you dedicate your spiritual path to, developing these types of abilities or powers in order to serve other beings, you tend to attract higher beings, in fact, any being who has a similar resonance. And these tend to be, the archangels, the angels here who are helping beings. They tend to be masters who are dedicated to helping humanity. Maybe some you work with, Master Jesus, Mother Mary, Buddha Kuan Yin. Their primary almost name is compassion. So you tend to attract or go into resonance with those beings when you hold the same kind of quality of energy or intention. And the same goes for, holding. There are other beings who also have that kind of also kind of what you might call self-serving intention. So you kind of will attract those types of beings. And there's probably no wrong or right here. There's only learning, really. So, but the focus of these transmissions is to develop these capacities in service to others. Okay, so so we'll do the hour transmission. It's really rewiring us, changing us. And this change could occur immediately, which we can discuss. We usually have a discussion period. It could be in days, weeks, could be in months, could be in years, could be in decades, could be in lifetimes. It's just really the plan of your divine plan, really from a soul perspective. And then, so that's about an hour and a half or so. And then the remaining, usually 30 minutes, is an open discussion on our perceptions, answering any questions, maybe going deeper into the topic as it sort of arises from being in this kind of energy funnel. I call it a divine funnel, connecting our group to the kind of the divine. And also discussion of dreams, because we're kind of in this 3 day period, and maybe even from watching this leading up, you may start to already have an unpacking of that energy and information. So it's really kind of a more dynamic discussion of really integrating and unpacking the information that we just received from the divine and the higher beings, our higher self. So why don't we talk specifically about the transmissions, just a summary, and then we'll do a short kind of transmission practice so you can experience some of what these energies will feel like and experience them, also benefit from them, calling in the kind of beings who will be holding this space. But I kind of already named the first one, which is the rewiring process. We kind of discussed the importance of it. But this is really sort of this deeper cleansing in preparation to being a stronger, both, we'll first work on a receiver. You think of the satellite dish, that we're a satellite dish, although maybe we're more like a satellite pillar, or maybe our chakras are like the dishes, following the analogies, geometry. And then the third transmission, or the second focus, is the broadcaster. Kind of the title of the transmissions is that we send these thoughts out. Usually a lot of this from a super consciousness level. We're not even aware that we're broadcasting, our predominant thoughts until we start thinking about or focusing on what exactly we're thinking at the moment. This is also the phenomenon of why people might feel like, like you were helping them in their dream, or maybe they're in a tough spot and you came to mind, and then they felt a little bit more inspired, a little more energy, felt a capacity to go on. Well, maybe they even received an instantaneous healing. Or we think of that also with certain higher beings, like, again, Jesus, Mother Mary, Medicine Buddha, whoever that someone has a very close relationship. And in the case of ourselves, if you've had that experience, you may not have been even thinking of that person. That's why I say it's more like we tend to think of ourselves as this, what's going on in our mind, external thoughts, which is only, if you think of it maybe as a fraction, is a very small bit even of our entire expanse of our consciousness, which I was referring to as our superconscious mind. And some of this has even been studied scientifically. So they say our conscious mind can receive about 7 ± 2 bits of conscious information, whereas in this case for psychology, our subconscious is in the order of magnitude of millions, maybe even billions bits of information per second that it's receiving. Now we're not conscious of that, but we're still receiving it. And we could, focus to unpack or uncover that through hypnosis. So now speaking of this super consciousness, that's why we may be doing a lot of things, having an effect on a lot of beings, places, dimensions, which we're not even fully conscious of, only because our consciousness is like a small window into what's going on in our larger conscious mind. And we're always trying to widen that aperture to what level, is available, or also being able to shift our frequency or shift even our awareness. So we're kind of more in that open awareness of accessing the superconscious mind, which is vast. It's basically almost, you could say, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. It's, the all in its kind of truest state, its full state of awareness. Okay, so this first transmission would be working on kind of this clearing out, and you could think of it as a never-ending process. It's something that you could always purify more as your system gets stronger. And so it's sort of almost something that you just put in daily as a practice, but that would be the focus on the first transmission. During that time, you may find you are able to access memories that you never thought about. And as that is coming up, the best thing is not to dwell on it. It's almost just like watching something move down a river. whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, however beautiful, neutral, or hideous it might seem. You just watch it, and then it will just keep moving out. But if you kind of grab onto it because it's like beautiful, or maybe it's also maybe very ugly, and then you keep focusing or get scared, that means you're also grabbing it. You sort of hold on to it even though it's on its way out. Okay, so that's probably the best way to work with things that are being purified from your system. Sometimes you see them are as they're coming out, which could be past thoughts that you're aware of in this life, also past thoughts that may be from other lifetimes. The second transmission is called building the receiver. So here we're really developing, we're asking the higher beings to develop, again, our capacity to perceive very subtle energies. This could be at all levels. It could be at the physical level. We're all very good at this, although we may not consciously be in control or trust this information. So, let's say you're viewing me or you're viewing a speaker. Uh, Most of the time, we're picking up their subtle subconscious physical expressions, and people here are probably also very conscious and good at that. You could develop this to a very high degree. Some people who maybe work for the CIA, or to detect people who are lying, for example. I think there's a very great book of a former CIA a person, or maybe it was in the FBI. I think it's called "The Body Doesn't Lie." I can find that exact book, but he kind of describes these tells that people have that are usually subconscious. So even at the subconscious level, we can pick up this kind of information. We can be sharper at that level. So we're kind of asking the higher beings to do that on the physical level, the etheric or pranic level, the astral level, which would be an emotional and mental level, the causal level, which is the karmic level, the spiritual level, which is at the soul level, and then also at the divine level, which is a sort of non-dual level. So it's almost like a scale of consciousness, and we can become better receivers of this information. What you may think, analogy that I sort of like, I believe Samuel Sagan said this, is that subconsciously on all these levels, we're receiving information from all different information fields, I call it. So people, places, things, both physical, non-physical. So we're definitely all receiving that information. The question is, just like with the subconscious mind in hypnosis, for example, or the superconscious mind being, billions of information versus plus or minus 7. Question is, can you access that information consciously? And so clairvoyance isn't so much that you're trying to receive more of it. You get the whole package. Everyone does. The question is, how conscious are you of it? And so is another way to look at clairvoyance, is that we become more, when we say we become more sensitive, it's actually we become more aware of that information that we're always receiving. And this may have been just to give you a sense of that, so that you could think back when you first didn't know anything about the energy world, and then you took maybe your first 1 to 3 or 10 energy classes, and then all of a sudden it becomes hard to walk in the subway. Like, for example, it's hard to be in crowds now, or now you're really aware that this person is much more loving than you had thought, or much more annoying than you had thought. Maybe it's sort of somewhat more poignant with the second example. And you knew this person for a long time. So the thing is that we were always receiving all that information, like walking through the subway. And maybe at that point, because you didn't have this multidimensional model in place or experienced it, you were subconscious to like all those thought forms that people were sending, all those energies, so many varying energies in the city, but they were still impinging on you. You just kind of didn't know you weren't aware of them consciously. And then you take those energy classes, and maybe they do sharpen your system a bit. Usually it can't get that sharp even within a year or two. But what happens more is that you became conscious You could place your conscious awareness like on the etheric body, on the emotional, mental levels. And so it's sort of like, oh, now I can, you're feeling more because now you are more conscious of what's going on when you walk through the subway at those other frequencies or other levels. So this is sort of, clairvoyance, another way to look at this clairvoyance. So we're asking the teachers, the masters, the higher beings to even sharpen it deeply, more deeper than we currently are. And many people here are probably already naturally sensitives. You may have even developed it more, or maybe you felt you weren't, and you've been developing it, and this will take it deeper. And since we get the recordings, you can deepen that each time, like kind of bring in this energy, because it's nothing on the actual recording. I think some people might know this, some people might wonder, which we talk about in the class, like how do the recordings work? There's actually nothing on the recording physically as a physical audio sound that actually transmits the energies. The energies are kind of in these other dimensions. So the audio recording is a little bit like a pass key, a resonance tuner. So you kind of like, where is this, information field that these higher beings, have created, and we created through our intention. Oh, so by listening to the recording, it tunes you to that, puts you in resonance with that, and so you download the energy again. But it won't be the same. It'll be the same kind of framework or content, but it won't be the same session as like what you receive like during the class for the first time you listen to the recording. It's sort of new each time, so we can continue to work on these areas, and it's really an ongoing work. As just like the volleyball team example, you wouldn't just practice once. If you wanted to be really expert at volleyball, you probably would never end your practice. You just keep kind of deepening it. Same with our spiritual practice, or even more so. Okay, so the second one is on being a greater receiver. You can think of widening the dish, making it maybe higher components in the satellite dish, faster components. And then finally, to the title of the transmission. In the third transmission, we're asking to be a better broadcaster. So really going back to maybe what these principles Master Chokkok Sui had, shared, which other spiritual teachers may have understood also. I like Master Chokkok Sui's teachings. They're very clear, very simple and direct. If you want to be a better broadcaster, you first clear your channels, chakras, and then you also kind of strengthen your energy field. So there's different components of the energy field. There's the chakras, which a lot of us know about. So these are these whirling energy centers. So you make those bigger. You also make your pillar stronger, which is sort of this divine energy, this downpour of energy. And that really is probably the secret is, we can build up so much energy in our own personal energy field. Let's call that 1x. But the amount that actually can come through us could be maybe infinite x. But let's just put it some kind of finite number, maybe let's say 100x when divine energy comes through. That's why you could, with your own thoughts and intentions, it's sort of like that thought kind of has a certain amount of energy. The stronger your energy field is, let's say it goes from 1x to 10x. But if you ever see someone, maybe they don't even really consciously work on their energy field, but they're they have a lot of faith in God, the divine, the higher beings. And then right before they, do a healing, they invoke for the divine, like the divine supreme God, divine Father, divine Mother, to all my spiritual guides, teachers, the healing angels, healing ministers. Let me be a channel of your divine energy. And then if you look at it clairvoyantly, their pillar, the pipe opens up, the divine energy, not from their personal self, starts rushing through, and it comes out into, let's say they just do a blessing, may this person be cured of cancer. Amen. Thank you. So that's the thought form. And then it's got all this power behind it, which doesn't come from their localized self. So that could be 100x now in our example, compared to the 10x even of a strong energetic person, even 1,000 million x. So that's how these sort of miraculous healings occur. maybe faith healings, we call them, can occur when someone's really has a lot of faith and is an open, receptive channel. Okay, so we're building that, but we're also building, that localized energy field, and also the capacity to hold that power coming through us. So that's this the third transmission, building the stronger broadcaster. All right. Well, why don't we do a short transmission so people can feel these energies? Well, actually, because the title is Arcturian Broadcaster Transmission, we'll invoke, we'll bring through the divine energies and ask the higher beings, the guides, the Arcturians, to wherever we are now in terms of our broadcast ability, with faith and guidance, take that to the next level in this short transmission so that we can be of greater service. Right. So this would be kind of how these transmissions would feel, but we're actually going to receive something here, not just a sample. So you can just relax. You can either sit, you can lie down. Even if you're doing something active like driving, the beings will adjust. And if you have a chance, you could receive this, where you can focus on it a bit more when you're no longer driving or carrying something out. And that will just deepen the process through the recording. And if you like, you can put the tongue on the roof of your mouth to connect your front and back energy channels. We'll just say a short invocation to the divine, to God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to all our spiritual guides and teachers, spiritual hierarchy, to the archangels, the angels, our holy guardian angel, our higher self. We thank you for your great, great blessings. Thank you. We're starting with the Arcturian broadcaster transmission energies. We'll do 3 short but intense cycles. This first one will kind of mimic the series, or kind of the template we'll be doing, is purifying one major block, something that maybe we're conscious of working on. If you're conscious of it, that's always a good thing. This actually means it's on its way out because you actually are aware of it. Like we were discussing before, it's actually the subconscious thought forms that probably have the most detrimental effect, just because we're not aware that they're still in our system. So we're bringing that to consciousness, or clearing that out now, where the beings are actually. And now in this Arcturian broadcaster transmission, we're asking the divine to download the energies that will help make us a better receiver, whatever next step we need to take. You might call that a more clairvoyant, more sensitive, building our clairs, our telepathy. energies are continuing to come along. And if you're new to this, usually the energies, they don't need any sound or, like I was mentioning, physical sound for myself. They're just sort of being directly infused into our system from these divine higher beings. It's usually I'm silent during that portion until we sort of change, what the intention or download is. Finally, we're receiving the next step to make us better broadcasters, stronger broadcasters of our thoughts, feelings, emotions for manifestation or materialization and service to others. That completes the third portion of our transmission experience. We'll just thank the higher beings and then bring ourselves out. So, to the Divine Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to all the higher beings, holy masters, archangels, holy angels, spiritual hierarchy, to our holy guardian angel, our higher self, we thank you for your great, great blessings, guidance, help, and protection. Thank you. When you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes and snap your fingers. Yeah, so I hope you will join us, Lauren and I, Lauren Gailey, who's hosting this series, this great series on her platform network. And we'll be having these 3 transmissions coming up. Hopefully you got a lot out of just this session, and we'll continue to benefit from the downloads, the connections to the beings. And we'll continue to have this. And if you can't join live, you get the recordings, both the video recordings as well as the audio recordings. And again, everyone is included in the energies of the session. So you'll be kind of in that field receiving that information. As well as there's a bonus you also get for signing up a relevant former mastery empowerment course that we recently had called Clothes in the Sand. So that will deepen your work. There's also a telepathic aspect or transmission in there, particularly connected to the Aboriginal people of Australia, who those guides, those spiritual beings, their assistants, and they live a life here on the planet that is telepathic. If you study their culture, they're actually more communicating through telepathy, and then even feel that kind of verbal communication is a lower form of communication. So it's a almost complete society that's embodied this higher level of awareness. So they're great models to work with. So hopefully you'll also enjoy that course. When you register, you get that as a free bonus. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for being part of this. I hope you enjoyed it, for enjoying it, and look forward to staying in touch. Thanks so much, and also thank you, Lauren Gailey, Lauren, for hosting this great series that you've put together. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Jean. We are looking forward to joining you and everyone in this event. This space that we create is so magical and supportive, and we are excited to be together once again. As soon as you register, you're already held in this energetic space that is created, and the downloads that we receive continue to unpack as days and even weeks continue beyond the session. So we look forward to you joining us and being in our sacred space together. If you cannot join live, you can join in by the recordings, which are just as powerful as the live sessions themselves. You'll be in the energy, and you'll also be in the vibrational frequency of the group, which is very supportive, as we've said. So we look forward to this beautiful time with you, and we thank you for listening to this beautiful video. Namaste. This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.